things down from a bio, because I think Zach's got a pretty cool bio. And I forgot to print this out, so I've got to end my glasses. So Zach's been with the airport for 7 years. Eight, excuse me, since 2015. Served his country in the Air Force as Deputy Squadron Leader, Sustainment Services Flight Commander, and looks like Community Services Flight Commander.
Yeah.
Did I get it all right? Even was Associate Professor of Aerospace Studies. Yeah? So that's like the aerospace engineer?
No.
Kind of, no?
ROTC up at the University of
Oh, okay. I was giving too much credit. Fun fact, though, he was also a recipient of the top 40 under 40 in 2021, so that means he's just now old, like me. With
I
that,
feel old. Do I? A great year.
I know, see? I'm
yeah.
trying. Okay. With that, Zach, thank you for being here. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I'm not in the way of this. Oh, all right, can everybody see this? Because this is what we're going to base this on.
Good?
All right, I've got, let's see what time it is. Okay.
Good.
I have 36 slides, almost all pictures, though. So don't be scared. Thanks for having me. I'm Zach Bass. I've been the airport director for 7 years at the airport, for 8 years. And you kind of heard a little bit about me, so I won't go into that. Some quick facts about your airport, and this is your airport. We're the third largest commercial airport in the state. We did overtake Medford 2 years ago. We are the fifth busiest airport in operations, which are takeoff and landings. Bend is actually third. So between Bend and us, we're actually busier than PDX. The the airspace in Central Oregon is one of the busiest in the whole Northwest. So if you wonder, man, I hear a lot of airplanes, you do. We have over 500 flight students here. The airport manages over 2,600 acres, or about 1/4 of all the land inside of Redmond. So we are city-owned, but we're airport managed. We fall underneath a category of where the FAA still has a lot of say in what we do. We're an economic driver. A lot of leases I won't get into. We have over 50 companies that call Redmond home. More than 1,000 jobs in the summer when we talk, especially with the Forest Service in the fire season. Safety and security. We're the only place in Central Oregon that has a 24-hour manned airport firefighting. So within 3 minutes, firefighters that are trained to fight aircraft fires with the aircraft firefighting equipment have 3 minutes to get anywhere on the field at any one time to fight those fires.
You had a fire recently to that?
There was a fire in Bend, and we actually sent our second unit down there. Because again, they're specifically designed to fight aircraft fire, so different than what you see on the streets with a regular apparatus. 12-member security team, we have LEOs, a bunch of security inspections, and I won't go into all that, but basically very safe and very secure. So let's talk financials a little bit. We are an enterprise fund, which means we're our own business. We don't take money from the city, we never have. So if you pay local tax dollars, we don't take any of the general fund. We create all the revenue ourselves. So you can maybe not see it, but $21 million in resources estimated for next fiscal year. Parking is $8 million of that. So I know people gripe about parking, but trust me, that is what is supporting this airport, other than federal grants. Yeah?
I hope you don't mind me interrupt, but I was talking to the mayor, and he said that 80%, only 20% of the people that use the airport are from Redmond.
It's actually less than that. We're just jumping above 13% now.
So I assume that the balance is largely Bend?
Bend Sun River, about 70%.
Okay.
90% of all of our revenue comes from commercial airline traffic. Every time you get on an aircraft, if you spread it out against all our revenue sources, you're usually paying the airport about $28 per person per flight. So there's a little bit of financials. Some other more financials, because we're going to talk about the terminal expansion, which is a big expense coming up. Over the last few years, you can kind of see that we've grown our cash balance. This upcoming year, we're projected to have about $33 million in cash. That will look worse once we start putting it into the terminal, but that was the plan all along. One reason we were able to do that is what we call our number of enplanements. And that's just people getting on a plane, but if you look at total passengers, we're projected to hit 1.1 million this year, 1.15 next year. When I got here 8 years ago, we were below total passengers of like at 450,000 total. Just to give you an idea of how much we've grown. It's like 130% in the last 7 years. Cost per employment I won't really go into, but basically this just is the cost that the airlines pay us every time you get on an aircraft. So let's talk air service and ask questions anytime. Any questions on the financials before I jump to the air service?
Does the city of Redmond, the council, have to approve any of your things like raising the parking fees, that kind of stuff?
They do on all of it. So there's a threshold. Even though we're a business enterprise fund, we still fall, it's almost like a water or a wastewater where it's different because we run a business, they're kind of running just rates and fees, but it's the same, yes. Everything is approved through council.
On with the, I tried to get a rental car for 2 weeks in Hawaii, and it was going to be $1,700. You know, are you seeing that increase as well? Are you able to increase your margins on the rental cars as well here,
So,
or is that kind of fixed?
it's a big question because the way I look at this too, and maybe this will explain it a little better, is if you kind of picture the airport as a whole as a mall, let's say I own a mall, and I lease out everything. I lease out spaces, I lease out, you know, everything in the mall is leased, and they're paying me, right? Now, do I have a say in what they do in their business? Kind of, but not really. And then the example of a mall would say, okay, well, everybody has to pay in to help clean the bathrooms. And so instead of the bathrooms, it's taxiways, runways, there are bathrooms involved with O&M and all that kind of stuff, but we're a fee recovery kind of airport. So to your point, I make 10% gross receipt off of car rentals.
Okay.
So if they do better, we do better,
Yeah.
but I don't have a lot of say in how they do their pricing structure. Kind of just like with the airlines. If it gets too high compared to Eugene or Portland, we can kind of talk to them about it, but we're not the ones that are actually setting those kind of prices.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Or did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. So air service, I'm going to give you a few slides on what we do. Everybody asks to get air service, right? I mean, I'm sure there's Portland conversations, all kinds of stuff you guys want to talk about. Let me explain to you what we give to the airlines. I was just in Milwaukee 2 weeks ago, and the first few slides are just kind of what we show the airlines to begin with. Now, the catchment area is about 270,000 people. If you look at everything, they basically use Redmond. If you get too much north, they go to Portland. You get too much west, they go to Eugene. We are geographically isolated. The mountains help us a lot. Our retention rate in the winter, much better than in the summer, as you could probably expect. So tourism is huge. So we also talk to the airlines about this, and we're 4 million overnight visitors travel to Central Oregon annually. You guys are all aware of all these, so I'm going to go through them quickly, but 30 golf courses, 6 destination resorts. 3 of our golf courses are in the top 100 in the country. Mount Bachelor, we always put that in there because we want winter. We don't just want seasonal. Natural wonders, all the outdoor stuff that you're all aware of. This is becoming kind of a lot bigger. It was mentioned is since they become on that one mark or the
Hated Homes Amphitheater.
yeah, and they're on a new national circuit, and I forget what the name of it is.
Live Nation.
Live Nation. And so this is a big one that we show them too, especially since it's bringing a lot more people in. You guys are also have felt this. 29% growth in Deschutes, 27% in Crook. Compare that to only 10% in Oregon. Gives you an idea of how much we've grown. And this is within the last 10 years. Top 2, anyway, we kind of go through all that. In migration, we talked to one of the 25 best places to enjoy your retirement, 100 best places to live in America. So our current air service right now is we have 5 air carriers, 10 destinations. And you can see we got a lot of California directs. It's good because we have a lot of in-migration and connection to California. But we are seeing a lot of growth in Phoenix. We just announced Vegas will be back in September with the Velo, low-cost carrier. Denver, Salt Lake, Seattle, and of course there's no Portland up there, but we can talk to that.
Yes.
How's that Santa Rosa flight working?
First inaugural was on Friday.
Oh,
And so far the pre-bookings look very good.
Okay.
We are doing very well with the Velo. So Burbank, year-round, Palm Springs, seasonal. That'll be back in October if you're going back down to Palm Springs. Sonoma, and then Vegas has just been announced. Some upward trends. I mentioned it. From the last year, or from right now over the last year, if you get on an aircraft coming out of Redmond or coming into Redmond, it's 83% full, which is a pretty high load factor, right? And some of ours are 90, 95%. They're also, which I'll talk about in a second, upgauging those aircraft. A lot of people ask about visitation seasonal. We do have a summer peak for visitation, but the rest of it is pretty good too. And to give you an idea of that, to really want to see where we sit compared to some other destination markets, Rapid City, Bozeman, Eagle, Kalispell, Steamboat, we have more annual visitation than all of those cities. In the summer, Rapid City's a little higher than us, but overall, more people visit Central Oregon than all those destinations. What is my son calling
Does that tell us how many of our flights, what percentage are seasonal? Only run certain times of the year?
We only have one seasonal, and it just ended with Palm Springs. It'll come back in October.
Okay.
Everything else is daily or year-round, 2 times a week.
Okay.
Hold on just a second. My son is calling me a lot.
Go ahead.
Hey. Is it important? Is it really important? Okay, bye. I got my 11-year-old son an Apple Watch. He's called me on both of my phones 4 times now, so I was like, I haven't talked about emergencies. Inbound visitation. This is all visitation, just not flights. I mean, as you can see, Portland's the highest. It's mostly a drive market, and you kind of walk down this list. Everything that's kind of a little different colored are ones that we already have or we're working towards. Airport retention. If you fly out of that catchment area, 80% of the time you fly Redmond, so thank you. That's a high retention rate. And I'm glad that customers are still using us at that much of a level. We lose a little bit to PDX, Eugene 2%. They did bring in Southwest, which is hurting a little bit. We are looking at Southwest. We just visited their headquarters, and we'll visit their headquarters again this year. I would hope that at the end of our expansion that we would have an announcement that Southwest would be in our market too. I can't promise that, so I know you're recording this.
So what's the target destination for Southwest?
Usually they would start with an LA and Oakland, and then they move into kind of more of Denver, Dallas, kind of the larger, they move into the larger markets mostly.
Does Southwest have a Phoenix one?
They do have Phoenix too.
Okay.
Yeah. They have a lot, right? But out of our market, it would probably be Oakland and LA to begin with. So when we look at top markets, this is just flight markets. So Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. And you can see that Portland's not up there. Now what this shows is you'll be like, well, hey, we don't have a flight to Boston. How are you doing that? Well, it's a little Big Brotherish. So if you leave here, you fly to Seattle, and then you fly to Boston, we know you're going to Boston. So it's one of those, what they call it Purdue. And basically that's what we work with the airlines to say, hey, listen, you're already getting 30 people a day going to Boston, right? Or more. Add a direct, stimulate the market, and you're going to be able to fill that plane. So it's a way for us to show them where people are leaving to go from here. And stay there, not just connect. So future service. Our first look is PDX. Now, why did we lose PDX? Okay. So you remember all those Southern California markets that we showed you that were direct? They were not direct before COVID. They all kind of started in the last few years. What that did was that cannibalized the connectivity in Portland that people were using. Only 30% of people leaving here go to Portland and stay in Portland. They use it as a connector. And they were using it as a, because they don't want to go all the way to Seattle, right? You don't want to go higher when you're trying to go lower. So they would go to Portland, and they would go down to California. So that's one issue we had, was we kind of cannibalized ourselves with the directs. And Alaska does a lot of those directs. The second thing was COVID, and they focused on Seattle. So if you go through Seattle right now, it's a mess, crowded, and so Alaska focused on Seattle for a bunch of reasons, especially with their fight with Delta, all that kind of stuff that we don't have to get into. And then the biggest thing since then is pilots. The pilot shortage is killing us. We would have probably grown another 5 to 10% this year ourselves if it wasn't for pilot shortages. But that is why we are seeing the larger aircraft. it was interesting. So I went with my family to Hawaii. We're flying back, 737 MAX 900. Nice plane, right? 200 seats, almost brand new. Get into Seattle, get off the plane. Hour later, I'm getting on the same type of plane to come to Redmond. So we're seeing just larger aircraft in the market, which is good. But we are seeing less flights, larger aircraft.
Is
So
Alaska the highest volume here?
37%.
It is?
Yep.
Okay.
And they used to be 56% when I got here. So they've lost some since we've just seen more enter the market. And again, Delta and Alaska are fighting over Seattle. So yeah.
I was going to mention about flights to Portland.
Mhm.
Our situation is that I have family in Portland, and I'll look at an airline flight and it seems so expensive, so why don't I drive?
Mhm.
And then I'll have my car when I'm there. Is that a factor that you're thinking of as well, that kind of reduces the Portland flights?
I can tell everybody right now that I will take a Portland flight at any time. We've been working with them in these meetings a lot. They did just propose maybe a seasonal winter. And I know it's tough because Portland historically we've had 4 or 5 flights pre-COVID. But because of those things I mentioned, they just don't see the passenger connectivity there as much. And Portland is still down 30% over pre-COVID.
Wow.
We're up more than 10%. They're still down 30%. So to your point, yes, it's a drive market, which does kind of hurt. But we've actually even looked at like revenue guarantees, working with EDCO and some other individuals. And yeah, I think it'll be back, but I'm guessing a year and a half. And a lot of places don't come into a market with just once a day. They need to do 2 to 3 daily to make it make sense for the connectivity. So we're working on it very hard.
Well,
Probably
you
not
just,
see it.
you know, you think of it this way, it's like, okay, I want to leave Redmond and I'm going in this direction, and then they tell you, well, the Redmond flight will not take you to New Orleans, but you'll get on the flight here in Redmond, it'll take you up to Seattle, you'll switch planes in Seattle. So you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
but then in Seattle to go to Portland to go. So this is why you keep hearing me crunch over here, because that's what I'm going through right now. It's like, I'm going up to come down to go over, then it's gonna be a repeat back. But now it makes more sense on what you're explaining, because to the average consumer and stuff, we're going, why, we're right here, you know? And
All those airline miles you're getting.
Alaska does have directs to LA. They do have directs to San Francisco. Seattle's still their hub. You're right. So you're going to get more connectivity out of Seattle, and they don't fly Denver or Salt Lake, which United and Delta can kind of get you where you feel like you're at least moving east to go east.
right.
Are these in order of priority, Zach?
They are.
As far as what you're
Well, in a sense. I mean, we've been pushing PDX since it left. Dallas, we have a revenue guarantee, 1.3 million off of a Department of Transportation grant. We were 3 weeks away from signing when COVID hit. That would have been a daily Dallas flight. We're still working with them. We still have that available. Last time we talked to them a few weeks ago, they're interested, but we probably won't see anything until spring of 24.
What's the carrier on that?
That would be American.
Well, I got a little bit of complaint to make about Chicago. I used to have directs nonstop
From here.
from here.
We had a red eye for one season.
That was just one time?
That was one season, yep. And it did really well.
Oh,
Again,
kids took it, so.
the pilots, the airlines are flying big planes because they can put the same amount of pilots in a big plane that they can on a little plane. And we are very fortunate in the sense that we have the capability to move up to those big planes. And we're doing well with those. You get another, Medford is down a lot because they could not, it was either lose it or go to the big planes. So there's a lot of airports our size are a little smaller that could not do that and have lost a lot of frequencies and destinations.
Is there still a seaport airline?
No. I think they went bankrupt. And then so did Boutique, which was flying the Reno flight.
So Redmond has one of the big pilot training schools.
Mm-hmm.
are they contracting on after to go to work for a commercial airline coming out of Redmond? Or how does that work? Or a lot of them training here and then, because I used to do the physicals for them, and but a lot of them worked in other countries, and when they were all done and got their hours and stuff, they left and went back to their own country to go fly for those airlines and stuff. So how does that work?
We used to be an international,
Yeah.
mostly Chinese students.
Right.
Alaska Airlines a year ago just contracted with our flight school, and they are now the prime Alaska Airlines flight program.
Okay.
So it's working. It's going to take a few years.
Good.
It's not that easy to train those guys.
Right.
So Dallas is another one we're looking at. Chicago, you mentioned we had it for one season. It worked well. We'd like to be able to, have Delta put some mainline into Chicago.
It was Delta that had it?
It was
Or
Delta.
United.
Wait, United. United, sorry.
United.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're looking at more frequency, larger aircraft, and better scheduling. So, if you go there in the morning, it's super busy. You go there 2 hours later, there's no one there. So we need to fill in those options for people to take, even though we're still a spoken hub system.
What is the largest aircraft you can handle here?
Basically, almost any aircraft until you get to the really big boys. So
Zach, were you here when Air Force One came?
I was not, but I've seen.
Yeah, that was
So
pretty cool.
it's not so much about. There's some. We only have 150 foot wide, 7,000 foot long. So it's not so much about the type of aircraft. We can almost handle anything. It's the weight. So you could fly a 747 or 737 from Seattle to here fully loaded. You could not take that 747 and fly it to Hawaii because the gas would require, the fuel would be too heavy, fully passengers. You wouldn't have enough runway length to take off. After the expansion of the airport terminal, we're looking at expanding the runway 3,000 feet this way towards the fairgrounds. Okay, so I only got a few more minutes here, so let me run about some fun stuff. Don't just ignore this because it's a lot. But the new terminal expansion, right now our first phase is expected to be about 145 million, low confidence. We have identified about 115 million, but I think we can get to the 145 million. We just have to work on some different ways to do so. But it is an expensive endeavor, but what you're going to get out of it, so there's a basement in the terminal, you might not know. That's where all the TSA do their screening of your check bags. We're going to expand that, so dig a big hole. On the ground level, 14 new spaces for the airlines. Queuing space, office space. Some of this stuff you guys don't see, but there's outbound baggage here, storage, and then we're going to reconfigure the hold room space on the first floor that you guys see now. So right now the airport does not intermingle between outgoing and incoming passengers, right? It's weird, kind of. With jet bridges that you're going to see in a second, we need to integrate that. So we will modify this hold room on the bottom or the middle, the ground level floor, and then the biggest thing you'll see is this. And I've got some cool pictures, renderings, but more than 60, it'll probably be about 60,000 square feet. We'll come up an escalator, hold rooms, 7 jet bridges, retail concessions, restrooms, and a lot of just place to wait. So that's what you're going to get for 145 million. I hope. I hope it's not more. See how the cost estimations go. Yeah.
Is there any provision or interest in having fresh food available for waiters?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out over the next year or two is what do we want to see in the concession space? Because you have your current restaurant up here, which is pretty decent, not open enough, and it's only kind of the one we have. But we're actually going to add about 3 times that space for more stuff. And the question is, what do we want to have in there? So we're still trying to work through that. Now, if you wanted to kind of see, here's an exterior look. So here's our current. You kind of, you walk down, you come out to the aircraft, ground boarding. We're still going to have some regional boarding. And you're still going to be able to use the ground floor hold room. But then, of course, you can see the second story to the west there that will have all the jet bridges.
Underflights go upstairs.
What?
They go up. They're not. When you get out of the plane, you walk on a ramp.
Yeah, they're all ground boarded.
Yeah.
These will all be jet bridge or at least 7 of them. So when you come through TSA, you're going to see a different look, but basically you're going to have escalators, elevators to bring you up to that second floor. Another kind of an idea of that hold room space.
There's not enough people in those pictures.
I'm trying to spread you guys out because it gets really busy in the mornings. And even now, between 11 and like 2, it's jammed in the airport. But we're seeing more and more every year. I don't think we've had a year that's worse than the year prior since COVID. And this is kind of an idea of looking west from the outside exterior. So the terminal, we went to actually council last night for the general contract award to Skanska. We already have an architectural and engineering services on board. We're about 40% through schematics design. We'll do some debt issuance once we figure out the finances. Construction will start in 24, late next year. You probably won't see anything though, effects on customers until the summer of 25. And then hopefully this is all done by 27, 28. And the unique part about this, which you probably already understand, is trying to build something on something while more than 1 million people still use it, is a very difficult thing to do. So that is our real quick update on a little bit about the airport, air service, and the terminal expansion. Yes, sir.
Now, are you planning an upgrade on your tower? My understanding is, at least for Alaska Air Group, they are flying out of Seattle. And help me to understand whether we're going to get more electronic support in the tower, or you're going to build a new one?
Yeah, we're not going to be building a new one. Bend actually is looking to build one. But to your point is, there's no radar in our tower. So if you ever get a tour up there, which I'd be happy, I'll have my cards out if you guys ever want to come and see the airport in a tour kind of situation, please do. The Seattle ADO basically controls the aircraft outside of a 5-mile radius of the tower. Once they get to that 5-mile radius, they pass it on to the tower controllers, who then stack up the aircraft for landing, takeoff, etc. Now, they use binoculars, there's no radar, to do this. And so we've been trying to get radar for a long time. We're approved, but apparently Raytheon makes it, and that contract went away, and now they don't have a new person. So we would love one. It would only be about $2 or $3 million. We just can't find the equipment to put it in. But it's very safe. Guys, don't get worried about it. And there's no tower. There's no tower between 6 a.m. or 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. is only our tower hours. Yes.
Oh, I was gonna ask about earthquake preparedness. Redmond is a hub, it's supposed to be people coming in, and what is the airport's role in that?
I mean, we play a big role in it. Now, what that means, we've had FEMA, we've had other people come in, the military has come in, kind of done studies of what they could park here, what they could use, and then they basically tell us to harden our facilities, and they don't tell us what that is, and they don't give us any money. So, the way we look at it is but we have built a lot. I mean, since I've been here in 8 years, we've spent about $100 million on the airport. We've redone both runways, 2 main taxiways, new parking, a new operations building. We've expanded the ramp. So I think all of that will help if we are that hub during an earthquake. But no, we're not doing anything special.
Yeah, how about the runways? Will they get too cracked up to use?
We're told that we're not going to have very much effect out here at all.
Okay.
And we sit on, if you've tried to build something, we sit on so much rock, I don't know. It's like 30 feet of rock below us.
So you're sitting on a rock.
Yeah.
Parking,
Yes.
garage, sprawl.
That was one reason why we raised parking, is we were overflowing. We don't have the money to put into new parking, so we raised it to kind of work out the demand and supply for at least a few years. We're doing a parking study. I'm guessing we're going to probably move outwards. We own the land, a lot of land, as I've said. Going up is like $600,000 a stall. When if I own the land, we can run some buses. And maybe I don't know, that might be a little.
Floor?
I know it used to be. Maybe it's 100,000 still. I don't know. It's more than what I could. I mean, our new 500 lot parking spot cost me 3.2 million, and that's just a sprawl. Probably sprawl with transportation, which would allow us to do a long-term, cheaper parking lot.
Get bus service, yes.
Mine's just more of a comment. I remember when you first got here and came in and spoke to our REA group, and I just want to say that you have done so much for the airport, and expansions, planes, really have done a great job for the airport, and for a city this size, or even area, to have that capacity of an airport is highly, highly unusual. So I think it brings a lot to our community, and just appreciate that. And I will not have a gripe about a flight. I will say I do appreciate the Vegas flight, so when I go see my kid, I'm not going north to Seattle and then south to Vegas. So thank you for all your hard work that you put into it. You've really done a lot in the period of time you've been here.
Well, thank you, and we've got a great team. I mean, true professionals out there, and we just keep growing that team. So it's been fun, never boring. Yeah.
My final question, I have a little bit of a negative issue, but
I was trying to end on a positive.
I have a whole PowerPoint on negative
Maybe
issues.
I-
You guys want to talk about flight noise or something?
the unhoused population, you've got folks at the end of your one rate,
Yes.
right? And the FAA has told you you've got to clean it up.
Correct.
What's the current schedule on that?
We are going, just went to council last night for the construction award to Taylor Northwest. We'll be starting the fence in about a month. And we have spent a lot of time out there with the individuals. Most of them have decided to already move themselves. There might be a few holdouts, and I'm trying to pull up the map just to give everybody an idea.
There now.
Well, I think it's on maybe hard to see.
Oh, okay.
Goodness, I do have a lot of these.
Where's that golf course? Is that, yeah, I think it's wrong. That wrong?
Okay.
So you talked to city council about this last time?
I did. They've been aware of it. It's actually,
Oh, I know.
it's kind of hard to tell. Here's what we call the runway protection zone. The FAA will not allow any residential, and you basically can't have anything in that area.
Right.
And in the past, in a few years, we've had some homeless camps pop up. And the FAA recognized that during an inspection, and they said, move them or your money is in jeopardy. Yep. So it's been a while. We've been working on it. We've been out there 4 times, myself included, knocking on all the doors, if you want to call them that, and trying to get them in help with service providers. Basically, it sounds bad, but I really don't care if they just move like 150 yards away. I just need them off the airport land, and I can fence it, and then whatever. I know that I can't fix. I'm not really good at fixing houselessness, but
Are there breaches in fencing?
very rarely. We have an interior road which we'll put out there too. Signage. We do twice a day inspections. Sometimes we get animals. Our fence, 6 feet, 3 barbs, and then it actually goes 2 feet underground. So working with animals, they usually don't get under our fence occasionally, but we have a full wildlife mitigation program, and that's a whole different presentation. I thought you were going to bring up noise complaints, but that is a whole different presentation.
I mean, you're limited in what you can do as far as trespass those people, unless it's a public safety issue, which it is.
It is. Yeah.
But then, where are they going to go? You know,
Just about
so-
250 yards that way. I know. I'm not trying to make light of this. I realize it's a big issue, and we've done our best to really help them. Gas cards.
Yeah.
And it's really, that's the reason why it's there. It's 80% of crashes happen there.
Yeah.
So it's not just safety of the people flying, it's also for them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where it happens. Someone slides off the end of a runway, plane comes in too low. So it's just not a good place to be. So
Isn't there a land swap going on with the state and the county too?
I know the DSL county.
That's been going on 20 years.
I stay.
Oh, you would know about that.
I stay. I jokingly say I'll just stay behind my fence and work on the airport, but
All right.
I don't know. I can't. We can talk more on that. I
No,
know a
it's
little
fine.
bit, but
It's going to get solved quickly.
One last question. Okay.
John has one.
Since you mentioned wildlife, the one that worries me is geese and ducks
Yeah.
flying into the jets.
Mhm.
Any interest in that, or I mean, any danger around your airport about it?
Well, if you didn't see, we got the Audubon Society, we removed the osprey nest at the fairgrounds.
Osprey?
Yeah.
They weren't very excited about that. We worked with them, but that's one thing we can do, is we start to kind of push out. One of our biggest issues is Fireman's Pond, and stocking that, because it lays right off the end of 1-1. And so not saying we're doing anything with Fireman's Pond, but we hope that in the future the city will build another pond somewhere farther away. But there's a lot of things, if you ever want to talk wildlife mitigation, we're certified, our people are certified to do almost everything, include taking, birds of prey even.
John, about this fish. You had a question?
No. I just want to say we're a big fan of the Avalo. We've used it. We were going to use it to Palm Springs on Monday, but found out that was a seasonal one. I just wanted to ask about the outside the fence, all those buildings that are right on the property, terminals and stuff like that. How much are they part of the airport?
Are you talking like?
All the hangars and.
Yeah. So everybody, yes, that's all land the airport owns. And we either own those hangars or we do land leases.
Land leases.
Long-term land leases.
Okay.
Same with the Forest Service, same with Peterson Cat. Right over here, we own this piece of property right on the other side of the golf course. We own the whole old golf course. And so we have over 325 different line items for revenue.
Wow.
And 180 leases right now is what we have with subleases that we manage. So 90% of what I do is actually property management. But then I get to look at the aircraft. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I'll leave my cards over here if anybody wants something.
Zach, thank you. I'm happy to report that the Osprey have moved behind Journey Church, which when I go to get water out of my water jug, I look at the new Osprey nests. They're right there. They're happy and safe.
150 yards
I might not be happy for very long.
Well, we have a little just token of our appreciation.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Maybe wrap
Appreciate
it.
it. Yeah.
Thank you again.
No problem.
All right, everybody have a happy and safe 4th. We'll see you next week.